the conference room?
And Marcy, I shared with Dan as well, but I don't know if he had a conflicting meeting since he was sort of a late add.
And that's all right. I think we'll I think we'll be fine. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview. So you guys, or your county at least, is already using PaperVision Enterprise, and we already have PaperVision eForms and workflow that's already licensed for your county. So we may have to add just a little bit of licensing there, but some of the big heavy costs have already been handled. Like the big licensing, the entity stuff is already set up for Chaffee County because of the Human Services Department and what they're already using. So I want to make sure that we understand your process. I know Chuck has relayed some of this to me already, but it's my understanding that this is what we're looking at doing is for your vendor management. And basically we're going to have some type of form that starts internally, goes through an internal review process. And then the final step is it needs to get sent out to your vendors for like final signatures. Is that the very brief 30,000 foot view? Is that correct?
I think it's, possibly a little bit of both, given there's some desire to have some internal sort of workflow management for, documents that have historically been just through email attachments or, passing around hard copy paper, so is there a way to sort of digitize some of our internal administrative processes?
I just want to make sure, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry, I was trying to talk a few minutes ago and nobody heard me, so I was just making sure. Sorry, go ahead, Beth.
So I think that could be, an aspect of it. And then to your point, there may be some that we then would have sent out to external partners, be they vendors or, funders or any of the external groups that we work with, for various reasons, either for their records or for some.
Okay.
So actually,
systems management as well.
So actually, we ended up going with DocuSign as far as the contract flow to get things from beginning to end, since after our first meeting, you guys said that you would have kind of an issue figuring out how to get, a contract to a vendor to get their signature. So we went ahead and went with DocuSign as far as just getting contracts, from beginning to end, but we're still looking for and needing something as far as retention and organization after they're all complete. And also, we are getting more and more open records requests. So, people asking for contracts, people asking for emails, different kind of communications and whatnot. And it's taking up a significant amount of our time. So I think along with just having a system to where we can go in and search for a contract that was done, whether it was last month or like 10 years ago, it'd be nice to have a system where it's easier to look for and find those executed contracts. And then also, I don't know what you guys do as far as saving emails and putting, after emails are reviewed and shown to not have any confidential information or whatnot. If you guys help with putting emails into a similar thing where, if somebody submits an open records request saying we want all communication between, County Attorney Jennifer Davis and so-and-so, that there's kind of a way for us to search that easily as well within this system.
Okay. All right. So that's a lot more information than what I was starting with. So we'll talk through some of this. And let me start by saying you mentioned DocuSign, which is actually great because I do have a video that we're going to show you as part of this meeting today, where we can actually integrate PaperVision enterprise workflow with DocuSign. So we have a full-on managed workflow built into Papervision that works really, really well for internal users. And where we hit the hang up before was the issue where we couldn't, or we were worried about sending things out to external users to get signed. Well, since you already have DocuSign, we can actually integrate directly with that. So you can actually send things out and solicit signatures right from the Papervision workflow. So we could do a bit of a hybrid process with, some of the contracts and things like that need to be sent out. We can we can go through and start the process in Papervision, either with a Papervision e-form or just with the document that gets uploaded, route it through the internal process, get everything in order, and then once you're ready, click a button to send off to your clients or your vendors. I don't know what terminology you use to refer to them, to get those contracts signed. And then once the vendors sign those in DocuSign, I know a big concern is the archiving. They would come right back into Papervision automatically. You guys wouldn't have to do any kind of manual process to get those back in and archived. So they would be, there indexed and ready for, retrieval at whatever point you did need them.
And I think, Rick, just to interject on that somewhat similarly, so things like short-term rental applications, which is becoming a real flashpoint, ways for community members to be able to fill out those types of things and then sort of automatically go into an indexed system whereby we're managing those from the outset, within a centralized database versus being, sort of standalone documents. So those types of, workflows that might be application specific, if it makes sense. So not necessarily contracts, but some similar touch points.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. So let me let's start with talking about Papervision e-forms and kind of what we can do with those. Give me just 1 second, and I will share my screen here with you. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Hopefully you're just seeing an arm of my logo right now.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what we are looking at here, this is just a basic Papervision screen. Is your department currently using Papervision? I know we're using it in Human Services, but have you guys seen Papervision before? Have you actually been in it for any of your documents?
We have not. It's only Department of Human Services that has it at this point.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So this is the login screen. So each of these projects up here, I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can see all of the projects. And this actually is your human services thing. So these are their different projects. And as we go through each of these, you can see each of these different project types have a different set of index values. So when we start talking projects, your projects, we can completely customize the type of indexing and the metadata that we're capturing. Specifically, when we start talking, starting a project with e-forms can be handled a couple of different ways in Papervision. So the first thing is what we call an authenticated e-form. So the Human Services Department here, they have two different types of forms that they use. They have an appointment letter and a call center tracker, and these are for internal staff use. So these mean that it's somebody with a Papervision account who is initiating the form, and we can click on these and start them off right through the interface. When these forms are completed, we can map any of the corresponding form fields back into a Papervision project index value. So this would be where we would use this type of thing for like your vendor process. Like if it was something that you were starting internally, we would have an authenticated form. Once you click submit, you can have signatures and stuff like that on here that captures time, date, stamp, IP addresses, all the stuff required for a legal signature. That can all be captured, through this along with what Papervision user was logged in. Our second option that we can do, Mary, do you know the Otero one? It's Otero SEP. I'm sorry.
Hold on, Rick. I can send it to you, and that's it, I think.
I should have had this ready for you guys. I just wasn't entirely sure which route this was all going to go.
It's coming your way.
Okay, thank you.
Especially in the chat, which is fine. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is an example of where forms can just be public facing. So in this case, we are just putting them in, on a website, but this could be embedded. So if you had clients that were or external users that needed to start the process, we could have e-forms published. We can build an old, your own website for you, or you can embed this somewhere on your own web page. And with these types of forms, I can fill out, I can sign everything, right on the actual form. When these get submitted, everything gets date and date stamped and everything along those lines. So that's kind of the two different ways we can handle an e-form process. It can either be internal authenticated, or it can be an external, like just published to a web, or you can email a web link. There's all kinds of different ways you can get these to the client. But they're tracked all the way through, and then they would dump back into one of your paper vision projects. Now, within the paper vision projects, we also have a workflow process, and workflow just means that we can route things between between internal reviewers. We can assign tasks to them. We can, they can verify amounts, or I don't know what exactly information in your process is critical, but they can, we can tie into other third-party databases if you have anything like that to validate, if somebody entered a vendor number, we could pull in things like vendor address, tax ID numbers, all that kind of stuff. What I'm going to show you now is actually, so we have a third-party partner who has a DocuSign integration for paper vision workflow. I'm going to bounce over, show this video to you real quick, and then once that's done, we can talk a little bit more about how we would integrate this into your actual workflow.
So Paper Vision Enterprise, as you know, can receive records in multiple different ways. They can even actually go directly out of DocuSign without a tickler. Or the demonstration today is going to be focusing on the workflow. When the records are being routed through, we can set it up so that the document can leave PVE, go out to DocuSign, be routed to the signer or signers through the established workflow in DocuSign, be completed, and then come back inside a workflow / Paper Vision Enterprise. We'll show you how that works very shortly. The way we do that is with our DocuSign processor, which is a Microsoft Windows service. It monitors the many Digitech PVE projects. What it does, it will create and submit out an envelope to DocuSign. For those who have not worked with DocuSign, an envelope can have one-to-many records inside there. And envelopes is actually how DocuSign tracks and charges. You can have 7 documents in one envelope or just one. Upon completion, the processor will pull it back in. It will replace the version inside of PVE, and the workflow can continue. While it's out with DocuSign, our DocuSign processor will monitor DocuSign, waiting and looking for that envelope to be finished so we can pull it back inside the system. What you'll see, and as we did the demo, is that there's certain fields that are configurable. We have the ability to set it up so that the workflow user can choose a template, which will identify where the signature should occur, add in information such as the subject or the body of the email, and get it sent out directly from the workflow task. They won't need to leave the workflow system to send out records to be signed. A visual of what that looks like, while it's in PVE, you'll hit send, it goes through our processor, and then we send it over to DocuSign. From DocuSign, it sends it out to one or many different users to be signed. Once it gets signed, it's up inside DocuSign, and then we pull it back into our processor, and we stick it inside of Digitech. This section right here is the template. As I talked about, you do have the ability for preset templates to be set up so that the records are established on where people should be signing. So with that, let's start the demonstration. Wayne, I'll move this over to you for you to start showing your screen.
Okay.
Okay. So you all know what the beautiful workflow screen looks like here. It has the image inside of it with your index value.
I'm going to pause this real quick and just jump in. So when we talk about workflow within the Digitech system, so this is our actual workflow screen that we're looking at here. The work step at the bottom, the bottom quadrant there kind of shows the items that are waiting in your queue, and on the left-hand side is where your task lists are. So in this particular case, they're in an editing the index values task list, and you're going to see in a minute that it's going to change over to some buttons. That's how we set up the different tasks within the PaperVision workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into this video now.
You get to choose your workflow task, and you also can do your indexing. Over on the left-hand side, where Wayne is the indexing. I talked before about the ability to choose who it's going to go to and what information you want established inside there. So Wayne can add his email address. He can add 7 or 8 other people on who it's going to get routed to. It'll be routed in the order of emails that you add inside the index values. The status is what is the workflow under right now. And then the DocuSign template is you have a choice there. These are pre-established templates. And what they're going to do is identify when it gets sent out to DocuSign, where the signature should go. You do have the capability of sending these out without a pre-established template. And DocuSign gives the end users the ability to add the signatures on the form where they think is appropriate. If you can make the index a little bit bigger, Wayne, for a second. Just want to show the other couple of fields. Yeah, so you can see DocuSign T, DocuSign S. Great. So the DocuSign subject, body, and envelope. The subject is what you want to show when the people are receiving their emails via DocuSign. The subject will be what's inside of those emails to help guide them with instructions about completing the form. And then the envelope is more informational purposes, so that if people need to track what was sent out, which envelope was assigned, that's part of the index values inside of PVE. Now, from workflow, you're able to send it out for signatures and send it out.
I'm going to jump in again real quick. This is those buttons I was talking about. So for this particular work step here in this demo, there are 2 buttons. We can send, solicit signatures. That means we're going to send it out to DocuSign and request that our vendors sign it. And, we can end it. These could also be, these buttons are completely customizable. We could have something like send for internal review. Maybe something didn't quite look right. You need to, maybe we have a tech in here working who doesn't have the authority to make a particular decision. We could send it to an administrative review step. So this could be somebody internally as well. This could also be, sometimes for example, like in an accounts payable project, we would need to enter or verify, an invoice against the purchase order in our accounting system, so we can do all that kind of stuff in here. So they can be manual tasks. You can be basically just checking a checkbox stating, yes, I've completed this, excuse me, or I've reviewed this and this meets criteria. Or these could also be automated tasks where we're actually connecting into an external data source or sending an email, doing various items like that.
The DocuSign. Once that is done, the end user will receive an email. That looks something like this. Very good, Wayne, that's fast. We get the review documents. Wayne's going to open it up, and I'm pretty sure all of you have filled out DocuSign forms before. You go through, you'll sign it. After it's signed, it'll be sent either to another person or be queued up to receive back into PaperVision Enterprise. Now we'll go back to our workflow. So either in that queue or the next queue, the users you'll see now the form with the signature and dates in there. You'll see that it will stamp the envelope ID. You'll see the history, which is nice to see when it was sent out, along with the DocuSign as being part of the history section. Once this is completed, it will just travel through. The DocuSign signature will stay with your record inside of PVE, and you can complete that. The fact that, like I said, Wayne chose the template allowed it to determine that the signature was going to go on that section ahead of time. But if there was no template selected, then the end users would be able to identify where they want the signatures to go. Let's take a second here and let's step back to look at the DocuSign software and just give you a feeling of the admin side of how that works and how they have signatures there.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop it there. You guys are already using DocuSign, so you don't need the demo on what that actually looks like. But does the process or kind of the workflow make sense, and does that kind of address the needs that you guys are having right now?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sorry, I just took a big drink of my smoothie and now I'm need to cough. So when we're talking about a contract, if we're talking about the contract part of using RMMI, the way that a contract is, created is when a department needs something. So for example, I'm working on a contract right now where public health has some grant funds that they want to use to hire a company to do some policy review. Okay, so nothing comes from outside of a department, like, if that makes sense. So our office only gets contracts from department heads. So from the from public health or the building department or the assessor's office or whatnot. So it's that person who emails me and says, like, hey, here's what we need you to review and make sure that everything's okay, or tell us what needs to change, or whatever, like. So basically, once a department head sends me a contract, it's my job to review it, finalize it, and get it out for signature. And so after, I'm trying to think of the right way to explain this. So after the Chaffee County Attorney's Office reviews and approves it, it still has to go to the Director of Administration for his sign-off, and then the Director of Finance for his sign-off as well before we get a commissioner signature on it. Our policy is that all contracts that come through the county have to be signed by a commissioner. So that's like our contract flow. It's
and then at what point in there, so after the commissioner's signature is when it goes out to the actual vendor to sign and return?
Yes. And what our process is now is just, we scan it in, send it to the vendor, ask them to sign it and send it back to us, and then just hope it comes back. So that's where the DocuSign part comes in, to where it's easily searchable. It helps us to remember exactly when we sent it out, and we don't have to search our emails for it to come back. We just literally sign into our DocuSign account, and there it is. And I know that it's what's been signed and what hasn't been signed. What I'm wondering about when you were showing us this most recent little demo is, like, if there's a contract that public health sends me that they want us to review, and then after we review it and we, instead of printing this out and getting it to Bob to sign off on, and then Dan to sign off on, and then a commissioner to sign off on, are you saying that there's a system within our MMI to just, they'll each have their own individual account as well, that they can just kind of log in and sign off on it?
Correct. That's exactly it. And it maybe Mary
without
can jump.
DocuSign?
Correct. Yep. So we can sign all that within PaperVision. So anybody who has a PaperVision account, we can sign off on documents within PaperVision itself. So let me actually Let me go back here. I am actually going to log out of this entity and log into something here. So this is just a test project I have here. So pay no attention whatsoever to the actual. I'm actually just going to upload a new document because I have no idea what these are.
And I got in there and was messing with that one project as well. So it looks even more smoother.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a few tests in here. Oh, just one sec to add. Bear with me 1 minute. Okay, so there we go. All right, so this is kind of our document viewer here, and I have the option here to sign this.
Go to view and turn on your signature.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it is on. It should be at the bottom.
There we go. All right, so it's just not showing up on the page here. Let me make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see it in the window. So I can add a signature right here. So I can sign this as Rick Harper. And when I click it here, come on. This works through my display window. My screen scaling is way off. I'm sorry. All right, so here you can see my signature has been applied to this document right down here. In this range, you can see it was signed with the date. You can see the IP address and everything it was signed through. So this works for any type of documents that you upload into PaperVision. And basically, once the signature is signed, you can see the history of the signing at the bottom of the page, and it is really lagging on my display here. That is not showing up for you guys yet, is it?
I see something called a test document, and it's got the name Rick
Yeah.
Harper on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So at the bottom tab here, it looks like for some reason it is it's really lagging updating the screen, but you can see the history of the signatures for a document. You can have multiple people do it, and we can actually automatically route these through. So once we can make it a criteria, it needs to get sent to Jim, and once Jim signs it, we need to send it to Susie, and then Susie signs it, and we can see the basically the chain of custody that's gone through and all the different signatures that have been applied to it. So this is what I would recommend for your internal process would be to sign, sign using it, right in PaperVision, as opposed to sending it out to DocuSign for all of your internal signatures. So we can absolutely do that. We can do that using, like I was showing earlier. This was stamped signatures. If you had somebody who needed to be able to sign documents internally. Or I'm sorry, who need to be able to sign something when they submitted a form, that could be part of the initial form submission too. So your department head, you could have a form template to fill out where they would, fill out all the pertinent information for, whatever contract you needed. If they had attachments or some type, files that needed to be attached to that, there can be an upload button as part of that e-form. They would fill out all of the information. They would submit it. It would route to you for, you would do your initial check or process whatever you have to do on that. And then send it through to your, to the first approver. They could then send it through to the county commissioners. Once the commissioners sign on it, it could either come back to you, or at that point, it could automatically be sent through your DocuSign platform out to the vendors to actually get their signature and approval on it. And then it would basically, in paper vision, it would be in a status of waiting for third-party signature, or, we can call it whatever, but basically you'd be able to log in and look and see any documents that had been sent for third party that had not come back yet. We can do escalation rules, like, so if you sent it out for a signature and it's been 7 business days and you still haven't seen anything, we could send either a reminder to the client, or it could pop back up into one of your other working queues where it says, hey, follow up with, with the client, whatever your requirements were, there.
Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to, after our department says, yes, this contract's good to sign, and
Mhm.
then what triggers, how do I trigger this is good for, the director of administration and director of finance to sign? And once they sign it, what triggers it to let a commissioner know that it's okay? Because what I want to do is not allow a commissioner to sign it until it's been signed off on by everybody, just approved.
That's the
what
big
triggers.
right.
That?
So basically we have a whole workflow designer. Mary, can you pull up the workflow designer and then share your screen? And we can
give me 1 second to pull up. Let me pull up the Otero one. Give me just 1 second to get logged back in.
Yep. Okay. So Mary's going to set up to show this for you here real quick. I'm going to stop sharing mine. So basically, we have the workflow designer basically is a flow chart kind of type thing. So we have different requirements at each step that have to be met before the document can move on to the next one. So in your case, your initial department head would complete it. It would come to you for a accuracy review or whatever we call it. And it's not going to show up in the working queue for the next stage of approval until you're done with it. You would actually we could have some tasks there that you would have to complete on it, or at least at the very least a checkbox saying I have reviewed and this is accurate and it's ready. Once you check that, the document then transitions to the next step where they would sign it for their approval. Once they approve it, they would complete, if it's just a signature is all they have to apply to it. Basically they would have a queue of documents ready to be signed. They would open it, they would review them. They said, yep, this is good to go. They would apply their signature. And once they've applied their signature, it's going to automatically transition to the next step. So what Mary is pulling up here this is what our behind the scenes workflow editor looks like. So this is obviously a very, very complex workflow. And what we're looking at in here is every yellow step, or that pale yellow color, those are all the manual steps, whereas all the lighter colored ones are all the automated things that we're running behind the scenes. So in each of those manual steps, we have what's called post conditions that we configure. And when we configure a post condition, we basically say a document cannot transition to the next phase of the process until these tasks or these items have been done, or this set of criteria has been met. So that's all completely customizable. But to direct, for your question, it sounds like I don't know exactly what you have to do as part of your accuracy check. I don't know if you have to verify information against like a third-party system, or just make sure they're on an approved vendor list. I don't know exactly what that is, but whatever those pieces are that you're verifying, would be set up in here as tasks, and you would have to complete each of those tasks until that document could transition to the next step.
Okay.
So here's one more piece that I'll show you really quick. Hold on, let me filter this by. Oh no, never mind. I can't show you. So I was going to show you, you could actually sit and see exactly the steps that the workflow went through. but I can't get it down to just one work step instance to show you. It shows me all of them.
Okay.
And so that makes it really messy, but you can actually see that, okay, so, I mean, I can show you somewhat of what this report looks like, but like I said, it's just a lot of gobbledygook to you right now. But you can come in and you can say, okay, so document this. Let's filter this out. Let's do just a quick step. And nothing started that day. But you can go through and you can actually see step by step what happened with the documents. You can say, okay, this document started with the director went here and went here, and then went to the commissioners to sign, and now we're sending it off to DocuSign. And you can see exactly the days that those happened and when it happened.
Okay.
With reports or with about anything. So it kind of takes it and keeps it to where you can see when somebody signed it, and if somebody signed it early, you know they signed it early, and you can see that right away.
Okay. And then after the vendor signs it, it's it's fully executed, and it comes back to us. Then is it the same platform that you guys have been showing us? That same kind of screen that we can just like a different tab or a different part of that where we can organize the contracts, depending on which department it came from and which year and whatnot.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, and it could even be like I mean, we could have a work step for you that was, or a queue. Like I said, we can do time-based escalation in there if we have to. So if, if you send it out for third-party review or third-party signatures, and, your requirement was that they signed and got that back to you within 7 days, or whatever that time frame is, on day 8, we can pop that back into one of your working queues where it would basically just be a reminder, hey, you need to reach out to this person, or you could send it, resend for signatures, or whatever whatever that needed to look like for your internal process there.
Okay. And then so that would probably be one of my main things that I would be working with every day. But say, and Beth, I'm not trying to say that this is your responsibility, but just an example. Like, so what if Beth was like, hey, I'm going to take over all the short-term rental stuff that we're having to deal with, because what's happening in Chaffee County right now is there are a lot of people who have vacation rent, have second homes that they're trying to do vacation rentals, and our county policy is that they have to, apply and get approved and whatnot. And there's a ton of non-approved short-term rentals and vacation rentals that we're trying to get into compliance.
Right.
So just say that. So when Beth talked about a form that people need to fill out in order to request an application or approval or however that's going to go, is it Beth and I will have the same, obviously we'll have a login to this account, but if my responsibilities are contracts and hers are short-term rentals, it's just going to look different. It's just going to be it's just going to be kind of catered to each individual employee's jobs and tasks and whatnot.
That's exactly it. So so all of the permissions groups in PaperVision all of the permissions are in PaperVision are based off of groups. So what we would do is, we would have, and one person could be a member of multiple different groups. So like if you had, a vacation rentals group and you had a, vendor contract group, you and Beth could potentially both be members of both groups, and, you would see everything, like that. Or if, in case if you had somebody, maybe one particular group was overloaded and somebody was going to help fill in, you could just put that person into the other group, and they're automatically going to see everything that they need to see. But it's completely customizable as far as access. So when you log into PaperVision, the projects you see are based off your permissions. So when I logged in earlier and showed you there, Chaffee County, I'm an administrator, so I'm seeing all of the different projects. But basically, when we set it up, when you guys log in, you're not going to see any of human services stuff. All you're going to see is what's pertinent to you, in your job tasks. Same thing with the different work steps. You can be a member of, one to many different work steps. So sometimes where we see this is somebody goes on an extended leave. One of your main reviewers goes on an extended leave. We can give somebody else permission to see their review queue, so that they can then take over that review process, to make sure that work is still getting done, just because nothing's stopping just because somebody's out of the office.
Gotcha. Okay, that's nice to know, because that is an issue as well that we've been dealing with.
And it can be set up to where it's automatically escalates as well to like a secondary review group. That's something that we see a lot. If we have one person who's primarily responsible for a particular review step, we can set up automatic escalation rules to where if it sits in their review queue for more than 48 hours, it can automatically move to like their supervisor or whoever else has signing authority, for that particular step. So I mean that can all be configured as well, as part of the initial process. It just depends on whether or not that level of automation is needed.
Okay.
Henrik, I'm curious. Sorry, Marcy, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's cool.
So we've looked at sort of the workflow and sign-off component. Can you show us more of that sort of repository functionality and how, once we had this sort of content management system built out and wanted to access, find and access historical documents, what that looks like?
Yep, not a problem. Give me just 1 second to pull up our demo entity here. Okay. Can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is this is one of our demo entities. So you can see, like I said, I have all kinds of different types of files up here. So I'm going to take a look at our case files project here. So at first you can see for this particular one, we're indexed last name, first name, case number. And then we have a couple system fields, and basically this is an audit or sealed case. We can set up document permissions to where if you have an auditor who's auditing you, we can actually give them an audit login, and they can only see files that are specifically flagged as an audit file. But for this case, I'm just going to do a blank search right here, and you can see I have a list of all of my different, all of my different case numbers and different case files in here. So if I wanted to search, for something in particular, here I can pull up. We've got a case file in here for Paris Hilton. And you can see, we can actually pull up the document loads. And, we can see our arrest sheet for Paris Hilton. So that's one way of searching. We also have the ability to do what's called full text searching. So this is, I was searching against an actual one of the index values. So this is the metadata that we've added to a document. If you have documents that contain full text data, so this would be things that started as Word or PDF files, that had been scanned and OCR'd. We also have the ability to search based off that full text data. So I'm going to go back and I am going to look up, this is just an EOB case. And rather than search for a particular index value, I'm going to go down here and search for Clark in my full text criteria. Here I can see I have one document that contained the word Clark within the record. So here it's not in one of the actual index values, but if I open the document, and let me know if my screen's lagging. Sometimes with these demos, when we're on these remote share sessions, it goes a little quick. And okay, so here, I pulled up my document, and if I go to my full text results, oh, that window's not showing up. It's popping up in front of it. Here you can see, over top my window, it pulled up my results. I know this is going to be really small, but I can see that the word Clark showed up on page 4. So if I double click that, it's going to jump me right to page 4, and I can see that Clark showed up right here on my scanned document. So it shows up right here in this range right here. So those are the different types of searching that we can do. Again, the index values are fully customizable for each project. If I look at my EOB project here, I can see I have facility type and my batch date. If I go into my accounts payable project, it's set up where I have company name, addresses, invoice numbers, amounts, dates, all of that different type stuff. So these are fully customizable. They can be drop down values. Like if you have like a document type and you have 6, 8, 10 different types of documents, those can be drop down values. Obviously we can do dates, we can do currency, we can do and anything like that. They can just be basic free-form text fields, but whatever your particular project needs are, it can be in there. We can make certain fields mandatory, so when your users go to upload a document, they have to index certain values. But that's kind of the retrieval side in a real quick demo, but that's what the retrieval side looks like.
Gotcha. So just so I understand, are those fields that you've established sort of as that metadata ones that are added in and manually external to the document, or are they somehow linked within the file itself such that I'm just anticipating like a import of a bunch of historical documents that are going to be a total hodgepodge of layout. So just trying to understand how that would work.
So that's always a struggle, getting historical documents into the system if there hasn't been a lot of tightness on structure. But we do have the metadata typically comes from external to it. We store it as we store the metadata, it's obviously linked to the document, but we store it, within our system. That's how we link it. So when we start talking about importing legacy documents, if you have like a file and folder structure, which most people tend to have something like that, like on a network share, we do have some tools where we can import that legacy data and we can preserve like folder names. Like if you had everything for like let's talk contracts, since we keep coming back to that, you had a folder named 2018 contracts, and then a subfolder with each vendor name in it, and then all of the different documents associated with each of those contracts and that vendor were stored within that. We could preserve all of that folder structure. We could pull each of those folder levels in as an index value, and then each of the file names in. So we have ways of creating or importing that metadata. As long as it's in some type of structure, we can usually help you get all of that historical data in. Obviously, our goal moving forward, once we start to use the system to manage everything, that metadata gets created immediately and is much more comprehensive when we start in the system, because we have all of that, all of those fields are tracked. We know who uploaded the document, we know when it was uploaded, we know from where it was uploaded, all of that all of those different pieces are already linked. So that makes things a little bit easier. But we do have ways of preserving, whatever metadata exists already when we're talking about importing legacy stuff.
And just to say that we have some random old contract that we need to keep from 2003 from some jail commissary contract or something, that for some reason, I'm saying this because they're actually I had a core request and somebody was actually asking for our most recent contract for our jail commissary services, and the most recent one we had was 2003. So obviously we'll fix that. But so it was just a kind of a super cheap looking, kind of scruffy looking document that was scanned sometime back in 2003, and so if that's something where nothing can really be automatically taken from that and saved into our system, into the database, I'm sure you can manually enter that, right? If you
yeah.
So I'm guessing that's going to be some of what's we've got just boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff that will that need to be scanned in eventually, just so
Right.
just for
Mhm.
viewing and sharing and other legal purposes. So, you know, it's just good to know that, like,
Absolutely.
if something can't automatically be pulled, that we can just
Mhm.
manually enter it and it'll still be
Yeah,
able to.
yeah, absolutely. So anybody who has editing index values is just a system permission. So we can give somebody permission to edit index values. So you can do it once it already gets into Papervision. If we're talking a lot of legacy scanning, that's something that we could help you on the initial migration process to this as well. Once we determine the actual project parameters from day forward, we can take a look at your legacy records, and we can help you scan those. Like if you have boxes and boxes of paper and you just don't have time to get that through the process, that's something where Chuck can come out and do an inventory, see what you have, and we can actually give you some pricing to actually pick all that stuff up from you. We'll bring it back to our facility, scan it, and and get it pushed right into the new project. So we would handle all that indexing for you. If that's something you wanted to do in-house, there's tools right in Papervision. Like, I can come right to, share this again here. I can come right to one of my projects and I can go upload. So I can actually select a file, an existing record, and then I can just hand key, all of this information, right in here as necessary, and click save. We have some tools that integrate with Microsoft Office stuff to where you can just, like, if you're working on a Word or an Excel product, you can click send to Papervision and it just brings up that same little indexing window. We can attach to desktop scanners or high-speed scanners. It's very easy. There's about 20 different paths a document could take to get into the repository. Some cases, we can automate the creation of that metadata, but like you said, when there's stuff where it's not already a digital record, doesn't already have that metadata attached, somebody at some point's got to hand key that information, and you can do that yourselves, or if you're looking for help to make the process a little quicker, we're at your disposal to do that as well.
One thing I want to touch on with this importing into Papervision, one thing that you had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting was emails. So one thing that we can do, and Rick and I can talk about this a little bit more because there's a little bit more to set it up, but we can set it up to where if you send something directly to an email address, so let's say you've approved this email and it needs to go on for Cora, you can actually send it to an email and it'll automatically sweep into Papervision, and it'll preserve who it was to, who it was from, the subject, I don't know, there's all the date and time it was sent, all kinds of stuff that's on there, that we can preserve. So we'd have an entire email project that you could actually go in and search and find all of it, and you can actually search their names.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple different ways we can link emails in. Like I was saying, like I said, we integrate with different Office products, Outlook being one of them. So if you're using Outlook, there can be a button where you can, there's like an add-on toolbar that we can install for your Outlook, to where, if you're looking at an email, you can click it and it would send it right in. We can set up a monitored email box. So anything that you wanted to archive, you would just, copy, finance archive at Chaffee County, or, a particular email address. And then, we could sweep that box, that would automatically get imported in. There's a couple different ways that we can go about that, depending on your needs.
Well, with the correspondence that we have to sometimes compile and then share through Cora, it's literally any county employee, like any employee with an email address. And as long it's my main job to go through and make sure that there isn't any kind of attorney work product or confidential information in the email. So I'm assuming, that's still something that a human has to do, to go through everything and make sure that whatever is confidential shared. But but essentially, if we were going to do this email thing, it would we would need to somehow make sure that every email from every county address was saved for a period of time, so that way, in case something was requested, it's there.
So depending on what your back-end email infrastructure is, We do have some tools that would basically act as an archive to where every email that goes through the county gets pulled in. There are some pretty serious implications and concerns. We would definitely want to talk through some more of what that would look like. The issue being things like Exchange servers and stuff like that. So if for example, you sent out an internal email and you copied 12 different internal people, right? The way Exchange is structured, like it saves one copy of that, even though it ended up in 12 different people's inbox. When we start talking about pulling this out and putting it into an actual document management archive system, we would actually, the way it works when you start extracting it is you would actually get 12 copies of that in the archive system. So we're not the best suited for full-blown email archiving of that type. We can do it. It works fine. It just kind of tends to blow your storage up. So depending on what your retention policy is on that, again, it's something we can go down that rabbit hole and we can look at it, and examine exactly, what your requirements would be, how long you need to retain those, and all of that. And it can be done. Obviously at that point, we now have every email that's been sent, now archived in Papervision. So there's obviously some confidentiality concerns with that as far as who has access to it, what's done with all that data. But like you mentioned, things like as far as auditing that for sensitive information, we don't really have any way of automatically determining that. We do have a couple third-party vendors who could potentially, third-party modules that could potentially like identify some easy stuff like social security numbers and stuff like that, and block those out. The issue with those systems are they charge per page processed. So when we start talking about if we're pulling every single email into the system that gets sent countywide and examining every single page to determine if it has a something like a social security number, that matches that format, and then blocking that out of it. Like I said, there's just some pretty heavy implications as far as how many pages actually get processed and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and that's okay. And I know that it's not something it's a huge project that would take a lot of
right.
So I was just curious. So
like I said, so I mean, yeah,
I don't have to put that on the top of the list of to.
Yeah. So I mean, there is some stuff that we could do, that could potentially help you in that case. But again, it just when we start talking about doing that, sometimes I just like to set some of those expectations up front that yes, we do have some tools that could potentially help, in the right scenarios, but we have to be real careful on how we apply those, just because it can blow up storage, it can blow up some, click cost and all that kind of stuff. So that would be something that we would want to look into, get your exact requirements, kind of go through before we even started talking about pricing and what something like that would cost.
Yeah.
So, anything else we can answer for you today? I know this didn't quite go the way I thought it was going to go. That's okay. I have a little bit better understanding of exactly what you're looking to accomplish now. But is there anything else we can we can answer for you today before in the last couple minutes here?
No, thanks, Rick. I think it was a helpful overview.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so I know moving forward, I thought Chuck was going to be on the call. I'm not sure where he's at today. But as far as next steps go, I mean, do you want to provide us with a list of kind of what processes that you're thinking, that you would like to do, along with like a brief overview of that process, within the system? I don't know that I have enough information on exactly what you're trying to accomplish to give you pricing at this point in time. Other than to say, like I said, the county already owns the workflow and the eForms license, which are huge costs. That's already been bought and paid for. So, implementation as far as, a workflow within Papervision, adding projects, within a couple users is going to be pretty affordable. You already have the DocuSign piece of it, so that cost is already covered. The only potential licensing that we would have to do is, depending on how many of the finance users would be involved at the process, and then the connector to connect PaperVision to DocuSign. The rest would just be professional services. But again, without knowing a little bit more on exactly what you're trying to accomplish, as far as like a phase 1 implementation, putting hard pricing together is going to be a little difficult at this point. So I don't know if you want to think about it, talk about it internally. We can have another meeting at some point to, where you can kind of lay out that, what you're thinking, what exactly what you're wanting in a little more detail, and we could price off of that. Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I think, and Marcy, chime in here, but I think it probably is us regrouping internally. I believe so. Bob Christensen, our county administrator, who was hoping to be here today,
right,
but wasn't able. I believe he had asked. I don't recall if it was Chuck or Michael to pull some of the current contracted, and price point information. I don't know if he had done that yet, so it might be a good place to kind of start with that. But nevertheless, we internally, I think, just need to come back together.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So what I'll do is I will, Mary's going to send this recording out to everybody. So I'll make sure that Chuck gets it, here in our office as well, so he knows what was talked about today and kind of what was covered. And then I'll let him know that you guys are kind of, regrouping and going through that process and starting to, think about what an implementation could look like. And I'll just have him follow up with Bob and let them kind of, handle that, the price point aspect of it all. And I'm guessing at some point we'll probably end up, if the decision's made to, keep moving forward, we'll probably have another meeting to determine exactly what, a phase 1 implementation, what you're wanting to accomplish. And we'd write the statement of work at that point. But we'll leave that up to the sales team right now. But if you guys come up with anything else once Mary gets that that video out to you, if you have any other questions or something that you think, oh shoot, I wish we'd have asked that, just shoot us an email. You can copy both of us on it, and one of us will get back to you. And we're more than happy to get on another quick remote share if there's a specific aspect of something that you want to see in more detail. We're happy to do that for you. So just let us know.
Sounds great. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.